As we gather this day, we are reminded once again that we are here because we've been called to be here. Love has brought us into being and created of us a community. May we find joy in our life together. Amen.
Amen.
So a guy shows up to the pearly gates of heaven, and St. Peter addresses him and says, "Who are you, so that I may know whether or not to admit you to the realm of heaven?" The guy replies, "I'm Joe Cohen, a taxi driver from New York City." St. Peter consults his list. He smiles and says to the taxi driver, "Take this silken robe and this golden staff and enter the realm of heaven." The taxi driver goes into heaven with his robe and his staff. Next, it's a minister's turn. The minister stands erect and booms out, "I am Joseph Snow, pastor of Calvary for the last 43 years. St. Peter consults his list. He says to the minister, "Well, take this cotton robe and this wooden staff and enter the realm of heaven." "Just a minute," says the minister. "That man, a taxi driver, he gets a silken robe and a golden staff. How can this be?" "Well, up here, we work by results," says St. Peter. "While you preached, the people slept. While he drove, the people prayed." So we are familiar with this vision of the Day of Judgment. A person, an individual, stands before God in the pearly gates and is held responsible for what they have done and how they have lived. We're so comfortable with this notion that we have created into humor. Well, today we listen to a story of the dry bones, another moment of judgment. A field of bones like a battlefield, bodies left to feed the birds and the scavengers. Why are they in this condition? Not only dead, but not even a consecrated burial. The people of God, created and called to be a community that is a beacon to the world of justice and compassion, they failed miserably. They've not only ignored but defied the dictates of God for creating and maintaining a community of shalom that will be so compelling. Other peoples and societies will be drawn to it like a magnet. It just hasn't happened. Greed for wealth and power have undermined the society. It's not only in tatters, it's decimated. Very dry bones. Now, recently, near the city of Dijon in France, there have been finds of skeletons buried in the ground in a seated position with their hands folded on their lap. Now, these skeletons date from around 300 to 200 BCE. And this burial position, seated in the ground, is a complete mystery. And archaeologists are trying to figure out why all these people were buried this way. In the scene that's shown to Ezekiel, with the Valley of the Dry Bones, the prophet knows exactly who these people are, what they represent, and why they are there in that condition. There's no question. The people have been punished for disappointing and defying God. This is the result they have brought upon themselves, complete and utter destruction. When the prophet Ezekiel is given this vision of the valley of the dry bones, he knows immediately what it represents. It's his community. And he knows where they are in their relationship with God. Then the prophet is shown how through a process of reanimation, they're brought back to life. The Spirit breathed into them just like in the creation story. And it brings vitality to them. And they're fortified. And they're made strong again. They'll be given another chance to be a faithful people, to fulfill their purpose. Like the story of the flood, this dry bones punishment is not the end of the community. Severe as it is, God will resurrect the bones and breathe new life into the community. But notice, they are not judged and reanimated one by one. There's no proverbial standing before St. Peter. You tried, you're okay, come on in. You extorted people and cheated people in your dealings. Sorry, you don't come in. No, there's none of that in this story. They are judged as a group, as a community. They are treated as a whole, and they all face the same fate and the same future. So each individual faces the judgment that is placed upon the society, because each individual is responsible for the character of the society as a whole. Maybe particular individuals did not defy God, but they didn't stop their society from running off the tracks either. What we see here is the nature of human life under God. It's about living in community. It's about taking responsibility for the community, recognizing our unity and our complicity. God is in relationship with the group. If someone strays, an individual, there's provision for addressing that. If the whole society goes astray, God responds with fitting punishment. The prophetic vision then portrays this process of remembering, the re-coming together of the bones, coming back together. A valley full of all these random bones, a vast number, very dry, and there's the directive from God to prophesy, and Ezekiel complies. There's a noise first, a rattling, the bones coming together, forming skeletons, then sinews appear to hold the bones together, then the remembering continues and there's flesh on the bones, and then the skin covers the flesh, and the bodies are remembered, but there's no breath yet. Then the prophet is commanded to prophesy to the four winds, all four winds, from all corners of the earth, to breathe upon these remembered bodies of the slain. And the wind came into the restored skeletons. They came alive and stood up, a vast multitude. After their detestable practices, their acts of disloyalty, their apostasies and defilement with idols, the nation is restored to unity and peace, an everlasting covenant initiated by God despite all they've done. This mythical story from long ago and far away bears much truth for us today. We are familiar with the stories of people who turn their lives around. Maybe someone seeks help overcoming an addiction, and their life is changed. Maybe a person grows up in challenging circumstances involving poverty, abuse, and violence, and they carve a way out through education and hard work. Maybe someone suffers a tragedy and turns it into a way to help others. These stories of hope surround us. But Ezekiel is talking about far more than an individual turnaround story. He's talking about a turnaround story of a society, a country that has dug itself into a deep hole of greed, fear, violence, and alienation. This society, bit by bit, step by step, is brought back to justice and peace. This invites us to consider our role in the restoration of our society, in putting our country back together in a way that honors the harm of the past while ensuring a future of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, not just some, and certainly not just for a few. As people of God, we're called not to just be good individuals, but we're called to remember, to piece back together a society that serves and protects everyone in its domain and that protects human rights the world over. Considering the remembering of the bones, there are two cases locally that involve exactly that. The remembering of actual bones in cemeteries. There is one site in Clearwater where a business was built on top of what was known to be a cemetery, an African American cemetery. Now there is a legal suit to uncover the bones and give them a proper burial in a suitable location. This would be an act of remembering, of addressing past misdeeds through recognition of the offense and rectification of the situation. Unfortunately, the mayor of Clearwater questions whether any tax money should be used for such purposes. The role of government should be righting wrongs and creating community for all. Of course, this should involve tax money. It's a community responsibility. We'll see. The trial is in October. There is a similar situation with a graveyard under land associated with Tropicana Field here in St. Petersburg. And we will see how that is addressed. Dealing with the aftermath of injustice and wrong is part of the process of restoring and reinvigorating society. It's part of the process of remembering. And there is a lot of such healing that needs to happen in America, and we are called to be part of it. Near Kutna Hora in the Czech Republic, there is a church known for the Sedlec ossuary. Have any of you been there? Okay, the Wells family, there you go. Well, in the 1200s, Henry the Abbot was sent to visit the Holy Land. He came back to Kutna Hora with a small amount of dirt from Golgotha. He sprinkled this dirt on the cemetery of the abbey. This became a highly sought-after place to be buried. After the plague of the Black Death in the 14th century and the Hussite Wars of the 15th century, the bodies continued to fill this cemetery. In the 1400s, a church was constructed on the site, and many bones were exhumed for the church. And the bones were piled in the basement of the chapel. By 1870, a local wood carver was hired to put these bones in some kind of order. And he began using the bones to create artful decorations for the chapel. So this chapel is completely filled with artfully arranged, well, bones. There is a chandelier made with at least one of every bone from the human body. There's a garland of skulls. There's a family crest made from the bones. And the chapel is adorned with the bones of 40 to 70,000 people. It's really quite amazing. Something of beauty was created from vast piles of dry bones. This is what we see from Ezekiel. The creativity of God remaking from the detritus of death a society of peace and compassion. In our time, violence and greed spread like a plague. War ripples right here to our home turf. Global warming has the planet in turmoil. And we see that the idea of individualism is an illusion, or better yet, a delusion. We all will face demise together, or we will rise together, creating societies where people are cared for and live together in peace. So we ask, can these bones live?